To the special parts of our nervous system. We'll talk a little bit about the brain and nerves, but in this section of anatomy, we look more at the special senses. So sensory receptors detect changes in the environment. You have sensory receptors. They are part of your nerves. They pick up things, and then they send that information to the brain. So sensory receptors pick up stuff. They sense things. They are the parts of your nervous system that pick up information. They fall into two categories: somatic, widely distributed, fairly simple in what they do, how they're made, their processes. And then special senses are our complex and specialized sensory organs. And that's where we're going to spend more of our time. So somatic and special are the two categories. All action potentials are the same, so all nerves are stimulated fairly the same, yet we experience different sensations because you have different receptors in your body. Sometimes you might notice, like your fingers and lips have a lot of receptors, very in tune with picking up things, where some other parts of your body are not nearly, they don't have nearly the amount of receptors. So we have different kinds of receptors, and a lot of times they're categorized. So chemoreceptors are going to be sensitive to chemical concentration. A nose is sensitive to smells, which are chemicals. Your mouth has chemoreceptors, sensitive to chemicals and tastes that are in your food. Pain receptors detect tissue damage. If your body did not have pain receptors, you would not feel pain. Example that you've probably heard of, your brain, the inner brain itself, does not have a pain receptor. So if someone has brain surgery, once they actually get to the brain, they don't need to anesthetize the brain itself because it does not have pain receptors. Or if you know someone who has had nerve damage, maybe they had a severe burn, or if you've had surgery in a certain area and your nerves are damaged, that area is almost numb. So those pain receptors in that area may have been damaged and you don't even really feel pain in that area. Thermoreceptors, thermo deals with temperature, so thermoreceptors are going to respond to temperature, and certain receptors pick up heat and certain receptors pick up cold, so these are also spread out. Mechanoreceptors deal with pressure or movement, so any little touch. Mechanoreceptors are kind of like your touch feel receptors. And then photo deals with light. Photoreceptors are only found in your eyes, and they respond specifically to light energy. So what happens, you have a sensation, which is an awareness that occurs when the brain gets the impulse. So if I poke myself with a tack, I don't have the sensation until it actually hits my brain. So the sensation is the awareness that occurs when the brain gets the impulse. So my nerve picks it up in my hand, but I don't feel that until my brain interprets the message that, hey, you just stabbed yourself with something sharp. A perception occurs when the brain interprets that sensory input. So sensation receives it, perception interprets it, and then typically you're going to have some type of response to that. So at the same time the sensation is being formed, your brain uses projection to send the sensation back to its point of origin. You can pinpoint the area of stimulation. So there again, kind of the same thing. If you poke yourself somewhere, Obviously, the receptor that picks it up is going to send it to the brain. The brain is going to send the message back. So, for example, if I put my hand on something hot, that heat receptor and pain receptors both are going to react, send a message to my brain. My brain projects back, hey, that hurts, it's hot. And then your muscles will lift your hand. A reaction will then occur. The actual particular sensation depends on the region of the brain that receives those impulses, and different parts of your brain respond to different things. So the brain has to prioritize everything that comes in all at once. So right now, even just sitting here, your eyes are working, your ears are working, you're sitting, so you have mechanoreceptors that are working. Your brain prioritizes all these things that come in and kind of addresses them one at a time. The brain can be less responsive to maintain stimulus. So those receptors in certain times can get used to, overused to something. So the feel of clothing, you know, by the time you have your clothes on all day, you really don't notice that they're on. Odors is a big one. If you live on a farm and it smells bad, you've spread manure or something like that, that smells terrible when you first smell it, but your chemoreceptors in your nose will become used to that smell after you've been there for a while and you don't even notice it. Smokers, people who smoke, they don't know that they smell like smoke because those receptors have been overused and they don't notice that smell. When we dissect cats or when we dissect anything in my room, that smell, the kids will come in, oh my gosh, it smells terrible in my room. Well, after a short amount of time, they